All
to mute
right.
myself.
Yay. I'm going to just pin myself. So Hathor, we're going to talk about Hathor and Sekhmet today. And I'm so excited because I woke up and the first thing I saw when I opened Instagram was one of my friends talking about Sekhmet, who she goes to Egypt all the time. And she had, the image was beautiful. And she said someone basically had, there was some threat to her child. And she said, normally I'm more chill, but you threaten my child and Sekhmet comes out. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. That's exactly what we're talking about today. And then I saw another, oh, actually, I want to screen share it with you. Then the next thing I saw when I opened social media was a friend who shared a picture of, I think it's Elizabeth Taylor. And the caption was dressed for the job that you want, not the job that you have. And I'm going to show you the image that was along with it. So screen sharing, there we go. And it was that. And so I think that she might be some combination of Hathor. Hathor has the horns here that she's got on with the sun disk in the middle, but then she also looks like she's dressed in the garb of Isis, who we talked about last time. So she's sort of a combination of both of those things is my best guess on this one. It's just Hollywood, you know. But this is Hathor, and Hathor is the cow goddess. This is also Hathor. So sometimes she's depicted as being an actual cow, like here, that actually her, and you can see the stars on the cow's body, and that's the idea of the Milky Way, that the cow's milk literally is the Milky Way. It's so beautiful, this image. Her body is the stars in the Milky Way. And then this one is more of an actual goddess, but always with the horns, that there's some homage to this idea of a cow. Either it's a woman's body with a cow's head, or a woman with cow horns, or sometimes just cow ears, actually, really cute little cow ears. And so she's Hathor. Here's her name here, Hathor. So I'm going to stop the share. And Hathor, she is, her name literally means my house is the sky, which I love that so much. My house is the sky. And she's considered to be the goddess of women, a goddess of fertility, a goddess of mother's femininity. She's like the personification of sort of, and actually as we go through this, you can chime in if it's reminding you of any other goddesses, because as I was looking all these goddesses up, these two today, and I was like, oh, it's like this one and it's like that one, and there's so many similarities. So in that she's the goddess of sort of like tender, sweet, nourishing motherliness, very Lakshmi like, right? Very like got that sort of luscious Lakshmi kind of a vibe. And but also though, very close, the idea that she is a cow or is associated with the cows has also a very Artemis vibe about being sort of one with nature, and she's the one that connects us to the animal worlds. And also, you know, just a little hint that there's some wildness there too, because she's associated with the animals. There's that hint, and we're gonna get into a story in a minute about her wildness. She's also considered to be the mistress of the sky. Her milk is the Milky Way itself. And the sky in Egyptian mythology is sometimes seen as a body of water through which the sun god Ra rides, and she's considered to be the one who gives birth to the sun. She's very, and if you remember from last time we talked about Isis and some of the other goddesses, they're all sort of interchangeable, and throughout history one would kind of blend into the other. And so I don't know if it was Isis or if it was, I forget which goddess it was last time that gave birth to the sun, but here Hathor does the same thing. So her womb is considered the sky, because the sun comes from her womb every day, is born, and Ra the sun rides across the sky and then gets reabsorbed into her body at the end of the day. So she gives birth to the sun, and she's got this sort of motherly quality, but she's also called Lady of the Vulva, which I think is just the coolest nickname. I would like that as my nickname. Lady of the vulva, amongst many other names, lady of this, lady of that, lady of the sky, lady of the sun. And she's got these two sides though. So she's this super soft, feminine, motherly goddess, but she's also super wild and badass and crazy, and a goddess of destruction and absolute wildness. And so sometimes she rebels against Ra. So Ra is, she gives birth to Ra, the sun god, but she also is considered sometimes the consort of Ra. But basically, they're sort of tied together. And the way I kind of feel it, it's like, there we go. We got to do like the very husbandly, wifely sort of like routine thing, like gotta make the sun again. Okay, this is what we do. Okay, give birth to the sun, ride it across the sky. And sometimes she's just like, I want out. I don't want to do this. I want to be wild. I don't want to live in this routine and be domesticated and be stuck here with you doing the same thing every day. And so every once in a while, she totally rebels and she runs away, and she runs to some foreign land where she just goes totally crazy and wild, and she causes destruction and she dances and she just kind of rampages around. And when she leaves, Ra loses a lot of his power, sort of like the Shakti, right? Like when the Shakti, you can't have just Shiva, you got to have Shiva and Shakti together. And so when she leaves, when Hathor leaves, Ra's power is not complete. And so he sends people to go find her and call her back and pacify her, which I kind of hate. But eventually she does. And she sort of says, all right, fine. He needs me, I'll come back. But I love that she gets to have her wild parties in foreign lands, which is kind of like what I feel like I need to do too. I don't know if you love to travel, but like that's why I go to Bali, because I'm like, I can't just do this every day. Just like get up and make breakfast and send the kid to school and do the thing. Sometimes I'm like, no, I got to get out of here. And so that's basically what she does.
It's like she goes to Vegas.
She goes to Vegas, right? Totally what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And then eventually somebody comes and drags her back and she goes back. And so this is speaking to the idea that Egyptians very commonly believe, this was an Egyptologist said, I didn't write down his name, but he said that Egyptians believe women have two sides, that of extreme love and extreme fury. And I don't know, I was in Egypt, but it was a long time ago. It was probably like, God, almost 20 years ago now. It's like at least 15 years ago. And I was only there for a week. So I don't remember much about their treatment of women. So I wonder if it's still the same now, that they do really like allow women to be both things. That I think in a lot of cultures, women are just expected to be docile and women are expected to follow the rules and serve the man. But it seems like, at least historically, that Egyptians allowed women to be both things, that there was this recognition of like, sometimes you're docile and motherly and soft and tender, and other times you're wild and you got rage and fury, and it's allowed. And I love that idea. So I want to talk to some Egyptians and find out if that's actually still a thing that's honored. But this is the best story about her, the story about when Ra, the sun god, he was watching the humans on Earth, and he felt like the humans had really kind of lost their minds, and they weren't being good. They were being really wicked and awful to each other. And so Ra decided to send Hathor to go take care of the humans and basically devour and destroy the humans who were being evil, just the ones who were being evil. And so she does, she takes the form of Sekhmet, which is the other goddess that we're going to talk about. So in the form of Sekhmet, she goes to punish the humans, and she devours and she destroys them. And she really starts to get off on it. Sounds like another goddess that we know, doesn't it? Basically, it's so similar to Kali. It's really really interesting that she's devouring these humans and destroying them like crazy. And she loves the taste of blood, and she gets so into it that she can't stop. And she's basically going to destroy not just the bad humans, but all the humans. And so Ra goes to the god of beer. and he gets the god of beer to help him, and they get 7,000 gallons of beer, and they dye it red with pomegranate, and they pour 7,000 bottles of beer out all over the land where she is. And when she gets to the next morning, she's kind of like, all right, here we go, I'm going to go eat the people today. And she arrives at the place where she's going to do that, and she finds it flooded with red. And she thinks, oh, wow, they're already bleeding. Awesome. And she drinks, she thinks that it's the blood of humans. And so she drinks this dyed red beer, and keeps drinking and drinking until she's completely wasted and passes out. And when she wakes up, Ra is by her side, and she's all sweet again. She's transformed back into Hathor. So she got drunk as a skunk, and it pacified her. So this story I find really interesting. That somehow there's a lot in it, I think. I mean, it associates her. So now her main festival is the New Year. And it's the festival of inebriation, and everyone gets trashed on red beer for the goddess Hathor. And so there's a lot in it. I think that there's something beautiful in that Kali-like way about, beer, drunkenness, that stuff we label as bad, as not being bad here, as sort of like things aren't just binary and black and white, and sometimes the things that we consider wicked are not. But then there's also that idea of being like drugged to be controlled, that somehow she needs to be drugged to get control of her emotions. And do you see, I've noticed in myself and around me such a grip that vice has on people right now, and the need, like we're feeling so much, I think, as a world, not just in America, but as a world, like really going through major challenges right now. And I find myself, I'm drinking more, I'm eating more, I'm shopping more. And I see it around me, like, oh my God, just so many people falling into really deep holes, trying to comfort themselves, and seeing the sort of wickedness of the world, and trying to numb it. So I think there's something about that, like it speaks to this feeling that we're not alone. And sometimes when faced with the horribleness of the world, that I don't know that it's okay, but that it's a natural thing to want to numb it with alcohol or whatever it might be. But then there's something beautiful about her, that she felt the need, like she saw this pain in the world. She saw how humans were being unkind and awful and wicked to each other. And in her great compassion, she wanted to destroy that. And so I think that in that way, there's that same idea that we talk about all the time of like this dark mother goddess, the one who people might mistake as being wicked, but her wickedness is actually coming from this place of great, great compassion and love, that she only wants to eat and destroy and burn up that which is keeping us stuck, and that which is dark, and that which is, destroying us from the inside. And so that's her in her form as Sekhmet, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So, but because of this story, she's associated with drunkenness. She's associated with celebration too. And so there's the two sides. And the one side is like music and dance and celebration and incense and pleasure and flowers. So Hathor is associated with all of these things, like the intoxication of delight and pleasure. And so to me, that sort of reminds me of the goddess Lalita as well, like to really delight in the sensory things of the world. But then sometimes her wildness is pacified by beer. Sometimes it's pacified by music and dancing. And sometimes it's not pacified, and it just gets to be wild and raging like a fire. But there's something about uniting these opposites, that she gets to be both things. And I think that's a beautiful part of Hathor, is that there's an idea about like wildness and rage, but tenderness and motherliness, they all get united somehow through love. Like it's all love. It's all just different sides of love. And then there's another story. I like this story even better, actually. And the story is about Ra again. And Ra has been insulted by another god. I think his name is Bibio, something like that. And he's insulted, and basically he sulks like a little baby. He's like, no, he insulted me. And they say, the story says, he went and lied on his back. And there's some sort of insinuation here that by lying on his back, he's stepping away from the world, sort of like Shiva does when his beloved Sati gets burned in the fire after her father insults her, and he retreats from the world. And when he retreats from the world, chaos ensues, because we need all the different energies for things to be complete. And so when Ra kind of pouts and lays down, there's the sense that he's stepping out of the world, and because of that there's an opening for chaos. And so to try to get him back into the world, Hathor goes to him and she pulls up her dress and exposes her genitals and dances until he begins to laugh. Is that not the best story ever? So she's got a great sense of humor. And I love, and no shame, like no shame, no embarrassment about who she is. And she can be motherly and tender, but she can also be bawdy and sort of like lifts up her skirt, shakes her pussy around, and uses there's a joyful playfulness about it, that she makes him laugh, and he gets up and he goes and performs his duties again. So I think that's a really adorable story. And then I'll show you Sekhmet. So share screen. This one is Sekhmet. So Sekhmet is the lion or the tiger goddess, often with a serpent and also with this sun on her head. So they both have this sun, the orb, the disc of the sun. And here's another Sekhmet here. And so you can see in this one that she's really fierce, and she's considered the warrior goddess, but also the goddess of healing. And sort of the one I was sort of like, whoa, when I was reading about her, because she's the one who brings the plague. And some dude in California just got the plague the other day. So here we are, we've got the plague. And she's also the one who is said to be able to cure the plague. And so the one who brings it is also the one who can heal it. And she's very, very similar to me. She's the most like Kali, I think. And she's very associated with fire. And they say her breath created the deserts. And in the midday, when the sun shines down, she glows so much that they call her the Lady of Red, or the Lady on Fire. So she's got this super fiery, like right now, it feels like we're in Sekhmet time, right? Late summer. Hot, like the golden hour of summer, hot, exhausted, right? And you feel it's like that sun beating down, so much fire, like, oh, we've just been in a desert of fire all summer. And that's sort of very Sekhmet energy. And she's got an ankh in one hand and papyrus in the other. She is the fiery one who can scorch, but who also nourishes. The sun can be vicious if we're, lost in the desert with no water. The sun just sizzles and scorches you, but also the sun is that which makes the flowers and the crops grow and nourishes. So she's both of these things. And she's medicine. And I was listening to an interview with a woman who wrote a book about her, and she said, in her presence, things look different. In her presence, you can see with your heart, not your mind or emotions. You learn how to stand in her fire and not discharge chaos. I thought, whoa, that's super Kali, right? That idea of the fire of transformation. She's very much about the courage to stand in the fire of transformation. And when you do that, you become like her. You sort of step into a very grounded sort of, well, she was talking about how she's the top of the food chain, right? She's a lion. And this woman said that the safest place to be is in the belly of the lion. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to think about it. And it's like you sometimes feel like we're in that fire, like the Kali idea of being pulled through the keyhole. It's that same idea, but here it's in the belly of the lion. Or the other metaphor could be like the caterpillar that goes into the cocoon and completely dissolves. It turns into gel, right? It's got to be completely dissolved in order to reemerge. And so sometimes Sekhmet devours you. And in the digestive process, whatever contentious patterns you've been holding on to, whatever those things are, those dark shadow things, they can be dissolved in the belly of the beast, in the belly of transformation. And they come as a pair. So in that one story, Hathor is sent by Ra to destroy the humans, and she becomes Sekhmet. And then she gets drunk and she becomes Hathor again. And so I like the idea of them as a pair, that with the two of them, there's a completeness of being able to sustain the fires of chaos that are constantly swirling around us, and to do it with tenderness and love and groundedness and grace, like a cow, right? So there's like the fire of the lion that's like, and then the cow is so steady and so gentle. And the two of them are actually one and the same. And yeah. Oh, I love this too, that the Egyptians used to whisper prayers. I don't know if they still do, but they would whisper prayers into the ears of cats. And they thought that the cat would take those prayers to Sekhmet. And so whatever troubles you have, you tell them to your cat. Let's see. I think that's pretty much all I had. Any thoughts on those goddesses? They're great, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
I'll be whispering prayers to my cats. I have 3 of them, so a lot of prayers to go around.
Triple prayers. The other one was Bastet we talked about last time. That was the cat goddess. And so it's thought that maybe Bast and Bastet and Sekhmet are related, or Sekhmet might have been an earlier form, like a wilder form of Bast. And then, of course, like always, they want, let's be more calm and pacify this wild goddess. And she became a house cat.
Who are still pretty wild in their own ways.
I love that about cats, that they're not domesticated. They're not.
No.
They don't actually need you. They live with you, but they don't need you.
They tolerate you. But you know, I was thinking there is an Indian goddess too that's associated with like a cow. I know it's like a form of Lakshmi, right?
Yeah, Lakshmi is the cow. Oh, well, Kamadhenu is the sacred cow that came.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, when Lakshmi was churned from the ocean, before she came out, Kamadhenu came out, which was the holy cow. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that they're so, I think that's why I love all these stories so much, because they're so, you can find those threads that go across all of these cultures and you know, geographies. Like the cow comes up a lot, the lion comes up a lot.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has a creation myth, and it's often like an earth mother kind of thing. Which I think is just so fascinating, that like how different people are, but they're the same.
Definitely. Yeah, it really is. It's a great connector, these stories. Yeah. And Durga, right? So there's Durga that rides the tiger too. So Durga is very Sekhmet-like, and like coming in to just take care of business when nobody else could. And Sekhmet's like, all right, with her claws, I'm just coming in to just take care of business. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the drunkenness story, which is just so like, you know, there's a Latin American goddess. I did this whole series on Latin American goddesses, and which are not so easy to uncover, but there is one from Colombia her name's Huitaka, and she's associated also with like, she's like the party goddess. So she's associated with like being drunk and being like, you know, having parties and sleeping around and like all of those kind of things. So like, and I know you'll appreciate this, like her original forms, like that was, you know, joyful and like that's part of life. But over time, she sort of became this like witch and became kind of like that was bad. And she's sort of associated with a later goddess that was more like evil. But
Yeah.
her original form was like, you know, there's nothing wrong with being joyful and like, you know, having a good time.
That's so interesting. It's like Hecate and some of those Greek goddesses that started out, they were like the cool witches. And then men were like, you know, actually, no, we don't like that you're doing that. So we're going to make you the scary witch now. It
Yeah,
happens all the time. Yeah.
it really does. And but I do like that it's again that kind of connection. Like it's very much the Kali story, right? The you know, when she comes across Shiva and then she's sort of transformed back, and
It's just like that. And we offer Kali and Kali Puja, you give her alcohol.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it's like that God is everywhere. It's not just in the pretty things. It's not just, you know, in the mainstream things. It's also in the fringes and the edges and the darkness and the weirdos and the drunks.
Do you know, are these gods and goddesses still actively worshipped in Egypt?
Yeah, I think Sekhmet is a huge one. I was reading that they had uncovered some tomb and it had 700 statues of Sekhmet in it. And this woman that I was listening to on a podcast, she was saying she's led 60 pilgrimages to Egypt in the last, you know, however many years of her life and her career. And she said that when she asks people why they're coming or what drew them to Egypt, or if they didn't know once they got there, what they found the most powerful. And she said almost everyone said something about Sekhmet. So I think Sekhmet is still really, really a powerful figure. And they're great. There's some giant statue of her somewhere in South Egypt. So I think, yeah, very much so.
Cool.
I know, it's cool, isn't it? Now I want to go all over the world and visit all these homes of these goddesses. That would be amazing. That would be the most epic retreat, right? We're going to go to like 10 different countries and visit the most powerful wild goddesses.
Let's do it. Let's make that happen.
All right, bucket list.
Yes, for sure. When we're allowed to travel again.
Leave the country again, exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks for being here as always.
Thank you. Thank you for this one-on-one.